Good evening and welcome to Poultry Keepers 360. We got a great show for you tonight, by the way, and we're very fortunate that Jeff is back this week. So we'll hear from him in a few minutes. But got a question. Have you ever wondered when's the best time to buy birds? Uh, I got an answer for that coming up. We're going to be talking about why fall can be the best time and how to go about buying birds in the fall. So we'll cover that in just a second.
Jeff, you're back.
I'm back.
Did you have a good time?
I had a great time.
What'd you do?
Well, let's see. I drove for 13 days, 7,775 miles.
Oh, you
I
couldn't
saw,
go 2 extra miles to make the last seven?
yeah. Let's see. I saw 14 either farms or feed mills, one, two, three national parks, one national monument, Redwood National Forest. So all along the way, I just conveniently made all those things along the way. So got to see bison and elk and mule deer and antelope and Old Faithful. So it was a good trip.
You've got some pictures for
Excellent.
us. Let's get a
Yeah.
little dizzy by
Ooh, great shot, though. I love it.
Yeah. If you look straight up through the redwoods, it kind of gives you a scale of how tall they are. So that was, I never took that picture before when I was in the redwoods. So that was good. Yep.
you didn't have
That
to lay
was,
down on the ground for that.
I was still standing. So it's a 6 foot difference different than reality. But yeah.
All right. How about
That was Crater Lake. So it's an old volcano. And after the volcanic activity quit, it sealed itself off. And through springs and rainwater collection, this is now the deepest lake in the United States and one of the three deepest lakes in the world at 1,976 feet of depth right now. So
and
that was pretty cool.
you saw some birds along the way. Did you see anybody with a lot of birds?
Yep. Yep. I stopped at Alexander Kids. They do organic pastured poultry. He keeps about 40,000 birds out on the grass for real, not imaginary pastured poultry.
Wow.
Yes, he keeps. I think he keeps about 5,000 birds in these two houses, and they move these houses 3 times a week, every 2 days, depending on weather and how much grass is out there. So yeah, that was in Crescent City, California. Great place to visit. They're very hospitable. So if you ever get north of the redwoods and you want to see the largest layer operation actually on pasture, that's where you go.
What are
So
those big white columns? Is that water?
they're actually blue, and they fill those from the top. Those are his feed tanks.
Oh, okay.
So they
Oh,
can get
wow.
a whole truckload of feed in, I think there's 5 tanks. So they can get, I think, 15 ton of feed in there. Um, yeah, and then they gravity flow out the bottom into feeders. And so,
That's amazing.
yep, had a really good trip. So,
Did you see anybody with less birds?
yeah, I don't think I sent you any pictures. I saw varying degrees of birds, but I saw, there we
Met
go,
somebody.
Craig Hansen. He's the man.
Hey, Craig.
And he let me hold a special cockerel and getting ready to take that one to the Iowa show. So Craig is also very hospitable. So if you get anywhere close, you know, definitely worth stopping to see him. I really appreciated his knowledge and his willingness to share and show off his operation. Craig's top notch.
And he showed you how to milk a rooster.
Yeah, he did.
I'm not showing that video. So
Okay.
you have to come back for another time for that one.
And he said that little bit on that spoon was enough to service 2 hens. And I'm wondering, he puts it on one of those little ice cream, like the sample spoons, the little itty bitty sample spoons. And I'm like, okay, how are you going to get it from the spoon to the cloaca to get it in the hen, right? And He just holds it up against the back end of the hen. She does the rest of the work. That spoon was clean. I mean, clean. I wouldn't want to eat ice cream with it again, but it was pretty clean.
So, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for talking to us about that.
Looked like a fun trip, Jeff. I'm envious.
It was. It was. I mean, it's painful. My body hurts from doing it, and it gets harder each year, but it's worth it for the people you meet, the sights you see. You know, it's not for everybody, but.
All right. Well, I guess we should talk about why we're here. So, Rip, why should we buy birds in the fall? Yeah.
Well, I've always preferred to buy fall birds because with fall birds, they're mature and what you see is what you get. Um, where with hatching eggs, that's definitely not the case. And with baby chicks, that's also not the case. You've got to raise so many to get two or three to keep. But if you just want two or three to keep, you can go to some really good breeders and buy a pair or a trio. Um, and you're set up and you're ready to go. You know, I've done that several times, and I'd have eggs in the box before I could get back home with them. Uh, can't do that with hatching eggs or baby chicks, but it, you know, to be able to do that, you really need to study your breed standard and know what you're looking for, and you got to get your hands on the birds. That's the only way you can tell about their physical body conformation. You know, you can only tell so much from looking at them. You got to handle them. So don't forget that either. If you wait till spring, and so many people are prone to do that. They're, you know, we've probably all seen people posting, I need a pair of this, or I need a cockerel, or I need a hen of this. Well, by then all the good birds are already gone. You know, uh, and you're left with the bottom tier of the birds to choose from at that point. Whereas if you get into the fall, you can get into that cream that the breeder is getting rid of. Now you got to bear in mind they're still his culls, but they are much better than the average bird if you go into a top breeder. So fall bird for me is absolutely the best.
And I can't help it.
Go for it.
I still, yeah, and not hatching eggs, right? There. I mean, if you buy hatching eggs, if you have a chance to get their best bird, which you're never going to get from them if you're buying adults. Is there? I mean,
That's true, but that is like a one in a million shot. I'll be honest
I'm a
with you.
gambler. No, I'm teasing.
I, I have tried that, and I have gotten some good birds. Don't misunderstand me. I got some hatching eggs from uh, Good Shepherd Poultry Farm one time, and got some really nice birds. But were they the best that he probably produced? No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But yeah, you can, but get out the dartboard. You're taking your chances.
What about money? Is it cheaper to go with hatching eggs than it is with a reputable breeder?
Well, I've got a slide here. Uh,
Yeah.
if you'll pop that up, we'll take a look at it, and we'll look at the economics of it. Okay. Now, with going with hatching eggs, um, you've got obviously the price of the eggs plus the freight to get them to you. And I'm estimating these egg prices. I've seen hatching eggs for less than $80 a dozen, and I've seen them for much more than $80 a dozen. Now, what you also have to remember, not every breeder will sell eggs or baby chicks. Many of the better breeders, forget it. They're not going to part with eggs or chicks because of just the point that you brought up earlier. They don't want to get rid of their best bird. But we're going to assume that you got 2 dozen hatching eggs for $80 a dozen. It costs you $30 to ship them to you. That's a total cost per egg of $7.91. Now, if you assume that you get a 50% hatch, and I'm probably being generous with that number because shipped eggs typically do not hatch all that well. I have gotten as high as 60%, but I've also gotten zero, nada. It's a gamble you take with hatching eggs. The post office, I don't know whether they play football with them in the package or what, but I have had some come in and great for them. And I have also had some boxes that look like been run over by a bulldozer. So it's a gamble. But if you assume you get a 50% hatch, that's 12 chicks. That gets your your chick cost up to $15.83 each. Now, I found a little chart online, and Jeff, you may correct me here if I'm off on this, and I'm assuming that this is for commercial type birds and not for standard bred birds. So these numbers may be a little bit lower. Feed cost. I just went with Purina Start and Grow from Tractor Supply. I looked up the price online. Works out to about 55 cents a pound. And I put a little bit longer period here to get these birds to 26 weeks because standard bred birds do not mature as fast as our modern production birds do. So according to the chart I found online, that's going to take $27 and about 27.07 pounds of feed. You multiply that times 55 cents. That's $15. So to feed 12 birds for that period, that's $180. And this is where you start getting the ka-ching figures in there. Now that's not including electricity or supplies like bedding, medication, feeders, waterers, any of that stuff. That's just totally the egg cost and the feed cost. That gets your total investment for birds at up to $190. That's a mistake, I think.
Wow.
But see, you were supposed to prove that.
I told you I wasn't looking at the numbers. I was only looking at the spelling. Yeah.
Feed cost of roughly $178.
Well, you did pay
$180.
$190 for the eggs.
Yeah.
For the eggs plus freight. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that would be $190. Okay, I don't feel so bad. So total investment to get 12 chicks to 26 weeks is $368. Now, going by that rule of tens that I throw around a lot, for every 10 chickens you raise, you're only going to get one that's really good enough to keep. So I'm going to be generous here and say that you've got two birds that were good enough to keep. I'm not going to say whether they're two roosters or two pullets or whatever, but your investment for the two keepers is $184 a piece. All right. So if you wanted to start with day-old chicks, we've got a slide for that. And it surprised me, and I think it'll surprise you too. If you got 25-day-old chicks for $10 a piece, that's on the bottom end of the price scale. $35 to ship them to you. That's $285. Total cost per chick is $11.40. Now, we're still looking at the same basic cost for feed, but let's say out of the 25 chicks, you lose 5 chicks somewhere along the line. So you're feeding 20 birds now instead of 12, and that's going to run you $300. So add in your cost for the chicks and the feed, that's $565. But let's go back to that rule of 10 here a little bit. And that's where it bites us. Let's say we got 3 good enough to keep. All right. Well, that's a cost per bird of $183.33. Almost identical to the cost of starting with hatching eggs.
I'll let you know that the audience is in full agreement with you so far, Rev.
Good. I'm proud of them.
Buying adult breeding pairs is definitely the way to go.
Good deal. I don't know who that was, but
That was Katrina.
Katrina will send you a gold star. Kevin, if you take care of that.
And Troy also agrees. We're going to stall while you catch your throat there.
I'm trying not to go through the coughing fit that I had last time.
That's right.
So everybody's probably wanting to know what is the cost difference between eggs, chicks, and a pair started bird.
Yes, we haven't talked about the cost of started birds yet, have we?
No, not started birds, but adult birds.
Yeah. Trio. Well, there's the trio. There we go.
So, and I gave a pretty wide price range here. You can expect to pay for a mature trio anywhere from probably $150 to $300. From the really good breeders, and you're getting really good birds, you can expect to pay $500 and up for a trio of birds. But let's just say we're in that $150 to $300 price range. Now, that's anywhere from $50 to $100 per bird. That's picked up from the seller. That's not getting them shipped to you. I don't like to ship mature birds. It's expensive. And since the cost of shipping has gone out of sight through the roof, you're going to wind up paying more to ship the birds than you paid for the birds.
You can get on an airplane and go get them for cheaper.
Just about. So you got an investment per keeper from hatching eggs of $184, and you're keeping two.
Well, that was per bird.
Yeah,
That wasn't
per bird. This is per bird.
Oh.
Investment per keeper from day-old chicks, and you're keeping three now, is $183.33. Almost identical. I was literally shocked because I would thought there would be more variation between the two options. So not only can you get mature birds that are ready to go, ready to lay, ready to produce for you, you can get mature birds that are cheaper per bird by doing it that way. And I know everybody gets all excited for the spring and ordering baby chicks and ordering hatching eggs, but it's going to cost you more money.
Well, and in general, I'm throwing this one at you with no thought. You are a show person that shows their birds. You've got a comfort level with biosecurity that some of us do not. And that is my biggest fear with bringing in adult birds. Is somehow that seems so much more dangerous to me than bringing in.
Well, when I brought in adult birds, which was very seldom after I got reds, I started with two trios of large fowl reds and two trios of red bantams. I only brought in birds twice, but they were always from the same source.
Yeah.
So part of that was I figured if Mr. Reese had a disease, I already had it when I brought the first birds home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
At some point
always
you have to take the leap, or you're not going to have any chickens. I mean,
right. But I always kept any birds that I brought in well separated from the main flock, and I tended to the main flock first, and the birds in quarantine, I did those last.
I'm going to do it someday, and I think it's going to be in the next few years. But
I'm
not
proud
excited.
of you.
I'm not excited about it. So
I have found a source for you.
see, I knew you'd do that for me. All right, let's see. Do you mind if we go over a few of these?
No.
Katrina says, folks often forget you're not paying for the animal. You're paying for the years it took for the breeder to produce those birds. More than likely, the breeder is still coming up, and I'm going to add this word, way short. There's no profit. Yeah.
I used to ship a lot of Rhode Island red. I shipped a lot of chicks, and I shipped a lot of mature birds. Somebody asked me one time, how much money do you make doing that? And I said, it would be easier to tell you how much money I lost doing that.
Yeah.
If you're doing this to raise money, you're in the wrong business.
If you want to have decent birds. If you just want to have birds, then make a buck. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that later. Craig Hansen, bless his heart, sent me a lot of good points that I'm going to go over here shortly.
Yep.
But
all right. Yes, that's Troy. It's a hobby and not a business of
amen.
Show fowl. All right. Let's see. We get you back on thing there. All right. So now we want to buy birds in the fall. Do you have any idea?
So we've talked about the why. Let's talk about the how. That's the fun part to me.
That's the hard part.
And all these how are things that Craig Hansen shared with me, and they were so good. I thought, I don't need to try to write this on my own. What Craig shared is critical. And these are his thoughts on buying fall birds. Number one is know your budget. How much money do you have to spend, or do you have to spend? Um, if you got $150, then you spend $150. You don't go overboard, and um, just know your budget. Number two, pick the right breed. If you're just starting out, pick the right breed for your facilities, your lifestyle, and your climate. And climate is one thing I see overlooked so many times. I'll give you a point, and I'm not picking on anybody, but there's folks here in the South that raise birds that just do not do well. Big, heavy, loose feathered birds don't do well in the South. You know, when I first started, I got the hots for buff coachings, and I got some, and they were absolutely miserable. They were very profusely feathered. Uh, and when I would raise young birds, they had huge combs, huge wattles, and they looked horrible, and they performed horribly in this heat down here. Um, People up north will raise birds with single comb, and then they have problems with frostbite and losing points on the combs. There's ways to help prevent that, but know your climate and what you're facing. Um, you're going to get the best selection of mature birds from the best breeders in the fall. We kind of talked about this when we were first starting. But if I go to Joe Blow, who raises fawn, silver duck-wing, Old English, if I go to him in the fall, he may have 30 or 40 birds, males and females, for me to pick from. If I go to him in the spring, he's probably going to laugh at me because he's got all these birds sold. These breeders don't want to carry these birds over from fall to winter to spring because they have to feed them, and they got more money tied up and more money invested in them. So they prefer to move those birds in the fall if at all possible. So that's another reason to jump on fall birds.
And fall starts on Friday. So
amen. That's right. I sincerely hope fall shows up down here with cooler weather.
93 today here.
That doesn't sound remotely like fall. I'm sorry. We were actually cooler than you. We were 88. Remember, the best birds are not going to be available long. They're going to be the ones that are snapped up and snapped up quick. So make sure and make your contact with the breeder. And you can, one of the best ways to find them is look in the APA or the ABA yearbook. If you're a member of both organization or either organization, they'll send you one free. And they are thick publications, and they're just chock full of ads from people all over the United States, or even outside the United States. But that's one of the best ways I know of to locate breeders of the breed that you're interested in. And I love these next two comments from Craig. Buying from someone who has been breeding a long time is a good idea. But buying from somebody raising multiple breeds is probably a very bad idea. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's difficult at best to do the things that you need to do to select your birds properly, even focusing on one breed. I can't imagine doing that with 20 or 30 breeds like some folks have. And folks, please avoid eBay like the plague if at all possible, because nobody who raises good birds is going to be popping up on eBay. So, choose your breeders wisely. And some more thoughts from Craig. Looking long distance is not practical except for the very best stock due to the high cost of shipping. Now, we've already talked about that a little bit. You're probably going to wind up paying more to have them shipped to you than you're going to pay to buy the birds. I had a guy that contacted me from England one time, and he wanted some Rhode Island red bantams. I said, okay. And I went through all the hoops and jumps and all that to get them okay to ship to export to England. He even shipped me a aluminum case. He sent it over by air freight to put the birds in, and he wanted 6 birds. Well, the case, and I felt so sorry for him. And I never even charged him for the birds because it was going to cost him a fortune because of the size of that box to carry it on an airplane. So I put 2 birds in every hole in the box. So he actually got 12 birds for free. But well, not for free because, like I said, it cost a sizable amount.
Yes,
get
but
those
you
birds.
got nothing for that, and you spent a lot of time and effort on that paperwork.
Well, if I told you how many birds I gave away over the years as compared to how many birds I actually sold, it would probably surprise you.
Is there, I mean, I know we're not talking about shipping here, but we know it's done. We know it can be done, but is there more of a chance of losing that bird after you buy it if you have it shipped? Like physically, like it dying or it not thriving after it gets to your place? You know what I mean?
I'm thinking back, and I can only remember losing one bird, adult bird that was shipped in, and it died in transit. And that was back in the days when they weren't shipped by air; they were shipped on the train. So it was the old Railroad Express Agency. Um, and the bird guy put him in a bushel basket. And when I got there to pick him up, he was dead as a hammer. But that's the only bird I ever lost from doing that. Now I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but that's, and I've probably been more fortunate
Well, and
than
you weren't buying 20 birds all every year from different
no.
sources. You know?
At the most I would buy would be a pair or trio. But I knew what the risk was, and I understood that, and so if all 3 of them made it, well, shoot, I was happy as a clam. But if I lost one, I lost one.
All right, we're back to
Um, we're talking about shipping, and Craig said he considers anything within 3 or 4 hours drive local anymore. Um, and he says probably even further in some parts of the country. I know that down here in Florida, I would, depending on the breed that I was going for, uh, I would probably have to look out of state. And for me, just to get to the state line, that's almost a 3-hour drive just right there. So yeah, you can put some miles on your car, but if you want good birds, it's worth it in the long run to do that. One thing that I have found, and I'm just an aside, but if I bought birds from people, they would ask me, "What are you looking for?" And then usually it was for breeder quality birds. And I asked them if they would put the birds, let them choose the birds for me. Don't let me choose the birds. But say, I want a trio of breeder birds, and I want you, if you will, to put them together just like you would if you were going to breed them yourself. And I always had good results doing that. So, folks, that's something to keep in mind.
Are there still people in this world that will literally let you come to your place and look through their birds and pick them?
Um, there are, but they're fast disappearing because of avian influenza and other biosecurity concerns. I can certainly understand that. I mean, I appreciate that. Uh, some
All
will,
right.
some won't.
Okay.
Just
All
ask.
right. We're to number 8.
Number 8, tell them up front what you're looking for. Don't waste your time or theirs. If you're looking for breeder birds, when you really want show birds, be honest with them because many times a breeder bird is not really a good show bird. Karen, in your case with reds, uh, one thing we talked about when I was up there is keeping some birds that had some excess black showing in the plumage. Um, you wouldn't want to show those birds because the judge wouldn't place them. But if you don't have that, then you start losing the surface color. So some of those birds are valuable to you as a breeder, but not worth too much as a show bird. Um, If you know somebody who's familiar with what you're looking for, ask for help. Ask for their advice. And if you have a mentor, draw on their expertise. You know, particularly when it comes to body capacity and the body of the birds. I remember somebody asked Don Schreider one time, do we have better birds now, or did they have better birds back in the early 1900s? And Don's comment has always stuck with me that today we have better feathers. Back in the early 1900s, they had better bodies. That's why they were able to take some of these birds and make a living raising standard bred poultry for meat and for eggs. But the birds today, there are some out there. I know there's some out on the West Coast and there's some up here on the East Coast. And I'm sure there's some out in the Midwest. But you really got to know and trust who you're dealing with when you're looking for really good dual purpose standard bred poultry. Late hatch pairs. Occasionally you can come up with these. I know Craig has some from time to time. They're not going to be showbirds because they're not going to be finished out. They're not going to be completely full through growing. They're not going to be showbirds, but they are from a good line. So if you know what you're doing and breed them right and hatch eggs and have the right mindset, and this comment from Craig sums it up. There's no point in breeding birds if you're not going to cull them. Most people, they cull their birds, but I would encourage them to go back and cull 3 or 4 more times to get down to the really best birds. You got to cull, and you got to cull with a vengeance. You got to cull hard.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
All right.
And yeah, I know you do that.
Well, we're working on it. Yep. Yes, I bother him everybody. I bother him daily with my pictures of this one's out of here. Yeah.
No, she doesn't. But I do get regular reports on how many's gone.
All right. So we got Craig's advice, and he'll still.
I think there's one more point there.
One more slide.
One more page.
All right. Well, we're gonna find that slide. Oh, look at there. Page last. Look at that. 12.
11 and 12. See, you're trying to shortchange Craig. I'm going to tell him.
He's right there watching. So sorry about that, Craig.
And this is the number 11 I really like. Think about arranging to meet at a show, because you can tour the show and you can see what's around and what's available. Most shows have sale areas. Although I very seldom buy a bird from a sale area, I have done it from time to time. Or if you can't meet at a show, suggest a safe place to meet for your comfort and your protection and the seller's comfort and protection. And this one is a direct quote from Craig, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. He says, I never like to see someone pressured. If something doesn't feel right about a deal, I'm going to add that in. Trust your instincts and say no and leave. We've all heard the horror stories about some of the pressure some folks have been put under, and it's not fun and it's not pleasant. Just say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not interested,
But that doesn't mean don't show up when you've agreed to
meet that's somebody. Right. If you agree to show up, be there. Be there.
After that, if you want to not follow through, then. But
and I think I've got another slide there, or a couple of slides, and one of the other sources, we talked about the APA's yearbook, and I should have got a picture of that and didn't, but that's because my yearbook's not here.
And you don't have 52 years of other yearbooks.
Well, no, not that many, but I've probably got 30, 35. Yeah. Another source is you can go to the American Poultry Association, and on their website they have their point system, and that will tell you who was awarded Master Breeder awards by year. This is for 1921. They haven't done 22 yet. Scarlet Eastlack out in Texas for quail Deandras. Derek Brady and his family, White Plymouth Rocks. This can help you decide who's winning the shows and who's got the better birds if you're interested in show birds. But it also indicates who has the better birds basically in general. But I want to just throw this out here, and there's I think we got a slide of the same thing for the American Bantam Association. It's just formatted a little differently. This is the ABA, but who was awarded master breeders in those years. There are some unscrupulous people who have learned how to game the system. They don't breed the birds that they show. They buy them from other people. But it's pretty easy to figure out and find out who those folks are. It's not in all breeds. It's more prevalent in some breeds than other breeds. But yeah, you can beat the system and get your points just by buying really good show quality birds.
I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to ask the people who are watching.
Yes.
How do you like to be? If you're the breeder, how do you like to be contacted? Like, do you want somebody to contact you this time of year and just be like, if you're ever selling, but then you're trying to put it on them? I mean, obviously you send them a polite interaction in some way, but I'm just curious how people like to be contacted if people are wanting to get birds from them. So that's all. You don't have to answer. That's a shout out to everybody else. All right. We do have a few comments. Let's see which ones are still relevant. Some ones are. So Craig wants you to absolutely know that he will not feed a bird all winter to sell for the same price next spring. And then hold on,
I think that just kind of reinforces what I was
saying.
He
said it again. No bird in that building is going to stay. They aren't bad, just not good enough. So it sounds like if anybody needs a coaching, Craig might have a couple that he's probably already spoken for. But all right. Oh, let's see here. I don't know who said that. Facebook is nice, works for somebody. Somebody else doesn't sell; they eat everything.
And I respect that, and I know there's some folks that are like that.
Messenger, email, okay. Well, I'm gonna call you out here. I appreciate all your commenting, but Rip just told us not to buy birds from you because you have Hamburg, Welsummer, Marans, and Americana Oscillors and Leghorns. So I'm just teasing you, but that has got to be a lot of work, a lot of upkeep, a lot of culling. That's got to be amazing. So
yes.
Okay, so and Bob's saying that he does prefer folks to reach out. That's sort of what I was wondering. Are you waiting? Are you stalking their Facebook pages to see? Because I feel like that's what Craig, right? You sort of get the feeling when he's culling, and but
I like, and just my personal preference, but I like for people, I don't have birds to sell now, but I like for people to contact me early. Don't wait. If somebody wanted birds from me in the fall, I'd like to hear from them in the spring or summer.
Yeah.
I want to build a relationship with those people. And the people who are wanting to buy should want to build a relationship with the person they're buying from. That can only benefit both sides. From the buyer's perspective, if you build a relationship, you're going to find that the seller is going to be much more willing to work with you. And chances are he'll probably give you better birds than what you're paying for. I know I would do that. And from a seller's perspective, if I can build a relationship with someone, I'm willing to work with them down the road after they make the purchase to help them breed their birds and help them make those decisions, because I realize that there's a good chance that this is a totally new breed or variety for them and that they're going to need help. And if they're willing to take the time to build a relationship with me, I'm going to take the time to help them as much as I can. Just my 2 cents.
Um, yeah,
So
just
why don't we just get them as chicks? You know, I mean, Karen, what do you sell? Well, you don't sell anymore, but what do you sell chicks for?
yeah, about
Um,
$10 that Rip said. Yeah.
okay,
But it's like pulling teeth to get me to sell you anything. I hate
I know.
it.
Yeah,
you
you're
need to be my
so
friend for 2 years, and then I'll
antisocial.
just give them to you. Yeah. but
Um,
but no, go ahead, Jeff, because that's a valid. It's
I
so much
mean,
easier to buy chicks than to build
okay,
all this up.
and let me explain why I asked that question. Okay,
Mhm.
so um, in my mind, if you get the chicks, you raise them on your feed program, your environmental setup, your living space, right, and under your management. Um, I just think you're going to see what you're going to get in the long run, because everybody's style and system is completely different. And not every bird, just because it's a chicken, doesn't mean my chicken's going to thrive at Rip's house, right, or at Karen's house. And I don't know. And I would think after a lot of the conversation that we've had here in coaching that, people are going to step up their game, feed a little bit better starter feed,
Oh,
you
would
know,
hope so.
and well, that's our hope. And, they're going to manage them a little bit better, fresh air, the whole bit, and take really good care of them. You could actually end up with something better than what that breeder has at their location.
Yes.
That first 7 days of life is critical. I mean, people don't understand how important the first 7 is, the first 14 and the first 21, right? I can set a lot of what that bird's going to be when it matures in that first 3 weeks. Um, if they've had a respiratory problem that scars the lungs permanently, I don't care what anybody says, it leaves scar tissue behind. So anytime that bird goes through a stressful event, it's gonna have trouble with its respiratory problems. You don't know what you got. You don't know if those lungs were damaged with ammonia at the previous place. I mean, I don't know. I lean more towards chicks, even though from a reputable breeder, that's fine. Do your homework. But I'm just kind of more of a chick person. Be in control of your future.
And really, if there's nothing wrong with that, and I see a lot of value in what you're saying, and I really appreciate it, and I've learned so much about poultry nutrition from you. I thought I had a reasonably good handle on it until I met you, and then I thought, shoot, I don't know doodly squat. But but you're exactly right. You know, you can't take an adult bird and up the feeding program and hope to change that bird. Now you may get a little bit better plumage, but you're not going to get a little bit better body. If it's already matured, that's it. You know.
But
Um,
are you really, when you're buying adult birds, you're buying their potential, aren't you? Like
yes.
in my mind, I'm buying their offspring. Like I am cheating a step instead of having to raise chicks to, what I mean? Like you're, I'm thinking that you buy those birds not for that bird, like not for bird A, but for bird A's offspring is what.
Karen, when I got my start in Goodreds, I had matured to enough that I had a modest amount of common sense. I'd like to think at any rate. But I approached it from the standpoint that I knew I wasn't going to get Mr. Reese's best birds. Matter of fact, the first 3 males I picked out, he said, nope, can't have that bird. Um, but I was buying genetics. I wasn't buying a show winner, and I knew that. I was buying, like you said, the future potential. And I knew his bird had the genetics to build a good, strong foundation on.
That's all. I'm just sort of saying. I think either way, you're ending up with chicks. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're
I,
not
I
really
don't
buying
disagree.
that.
I don't disagree with that. However, there are conditions while that bird was growing
Mm-hmm.
that is going to affect its reproductive rate, right? Where the ovaries actually develop correctly from week 6 to 12, where they fed correctly to develop the ovaries. There's, I don't know. I get it. I understand what you're saying. I just, what's the fertility of that bird going to be? Carrying with your flock, right? So are they more fertile now than they were when you got them?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you got really good birds when you started, right? You didn't just go buy somebody's junk at Tractor Supply or whatever.
Not
And,
quite. Yeah.
right. So, there's so much that happens in that first, 18 weeks of life that is going to follow you or haunt you as long as you own that bird. And there's no way around that. So to me, it's a gamble either way, unless you really know that breeder and know how well they're, and the folks listening may not even know, what questions to ask. Like, what's your fertility rate? What are you seeing for a fertility rate or a hatch rate, with your flock? And you don't just come out with this checklist of questions because you're gonna scare them off, but you kind of blend it into a conversation about, how's your breeding going? You getting good fertility rates? Whatever. Just general conversation. But yeah, I think the gamble is equal whether you do chicks or you do adults or, I get it.
And, and Jeff, maybe I was just lucky, um, but I knew the guy I got my reds from had them for about 50 years at that point, and he got them from the lady that had been breeding that line for probably 40 years before. Um, a- and I'll just say maybe I was lucky, but I lucked out. I got some good birds,
Well, did you ship them in or did you go get them?
so I went and picked them up.
Yeah. All right. So that's the other thing. If you can go look at them
Yeah,
and see the facilities that they're being raised in, meet the people, I think meeting the owner and getting to know them a little bit, that relationship that you were talking about earlier is just as important
invaluable.
for the buyer as it is for the seller. Okay.
I was fortunate enough that I went up on a Saturday. My son and I did. We were up there for 2 days, and we didn't do anything but talk and look at chickens, and well, we did eat pretty good. His wife was an excellent cook, and they had a barbecue joint not too far down the road that I got to be rather fond of. But and Mr. Reese became not only a friend and a mentor, he became a lifelong friend. I had the pleasure of knowing him for about 25 years before he passed away. And he was amazing. And I wish today that I knew half of what he knew about chickens.
Eric, and there's people listening that wish they knew half of what you know about chickens. So
Well, that doesn't take them long.
somehow we got to figure out how to pass good information along for folks. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. But
Yeah.
it's, yeah, if you can go see the breeder, if you can go see the flock and talk to the person, get to know them, yeah, I think you're going to be a whole lot better off versus buying in chicks or buying in hatching eggs. That's definitely the way to go. But there may not be the breed you're looking for somewhere close by.
Yeah. Well, that was Mr. Reese lived. Well, he wasn't really close to anything, but I guess the closest town was Augusta, Georgia, and that was back in the '80s, and that was a pretty good hike to go from Ocala, Florida, up to near Augusta, Georgia, a little town called Thompson, Georgia. But it was a good time.
I think I'm going to put Bob's up here that as a breeder, a lot of us are gun shy of selling
Mhm.
chicks. We don't
Yep.
raise very many and have small flocks. And I think that and there's another one with the best genetics that you can get. And I feel like that's another part of what you just need to do. If you're serious and you truly want the best genetics, you are making friends with that breeder to the best of your ability and taking what they're willing to give you.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like when they're willing to, when, you know what I mean? That you can, there are best practices, but I mean, you know,
And who knows if you get 25 chicks, you may hit the jackpot and get some outstanding birds out of that. Uh, and Lordy knows I have ordered enough baby chicks in my life to patch the road a mile. Uh,
if you reach that breeder at just the right time, they might be willing to give you 50 baby chicks or 50 juveniles off the last.
I have had
Oh
that
wait,
happen. He
that's
said,
me
if
right
you'll
now.
come
The
get them,
last
I'll give
50. If you'll, my youngest 50 birds. If you want to take them all right now, I'm so no. But I don't mean it. But you know, that's where just trying to be in touch and be
Yes.
as all right.
It's just being friends with folks is really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
I have had people over the years give me better birds than I could have bought from them just because we were friends.
But never ask for them.
No.
You're never gonna get free birds by saying to anybody, "Do you anybody got any free birds?" I don't.
Invariably, after I got to know Mr. Reese, I'd go up there and he'd say, "Now I got some birds over here. If you want to go through them and take some of them home, that'll be all right." And he was a very giving person. He was his family had been there pre-Civil War, but he gave me two 600 egg incubators and one 1,200 egg incubator. Over the
You
old
just threw
redwood
that in the
machine.
car. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't in the car; it was in
Yes.
the pickup truck.
All right. Edgar wants us to remember one more time when you're buying stock, make sure you have a turn down agreement if what the seller brings to the local Starbucks doesn't satisfy you. So agreeing with
And
that.
I would agree with that. And that kind of goes back to what Craig says. You know, if it doesn't feel right, walk away.
Yeah. Um, I don't. We got anything else, Rip?
I've said my piece. I didn't know if we had any more.
There's lots
comment.
of but I feel like we've sort of covered all of them in one way or another. Like so.
I had my show notes up, and I kind of covered up the comments.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go through them here. But folks, you know, we've talked a lot about why and how to buy fall birds. And if you're wondering what that next logical step is, we've already got a video, and you can just click on it. We'll have an what am I trying to say? In card.
YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube in card on there. As soon as we can get YouTube to cooperate with us and put it up there. Won't be up tonight, but probably sometime tomorrow. But folks, I appreciate all the comments, and I appreciate all the work and effort that's gone into this. Just, you know, if you like this show, just peck on the like button down below, and that will help people find it, and they can learn from this video too. So I want to thank the folks at Fur Trail, because without their generous support, we wouldn't be doing this show. Trust me, it's a huge help, and you know, Fur Trail puts out a lot of products for gardens and for livestock. It's not Jeff is not just poultry they have. They're servicing all breeds of livestock. But I use their products and they're good. So until next, we got a show in 2 more weeks. Wow, we'll be in.
Rip, how are we doing on subjects? Do we want to poll the audience for?
Rip did that on.
I've got some.
You got some. Right.
You got some going.
Okay.
Just haven't settled on anything. But yeah, we did a little poll on Poultry Keepers 360. it's still up there. You know, it's not an official poll type poll, but it was, you know, tell us what you want us to cover, and we'll do our best to do it. So, Jeff and Karen, you got anything?
Nope. Great show.
It was, and the only thing I'm going to add to that is bye bye, y'all. Have a good one. We'll see you later.